Hello, Marcus. How are you doing?
Hello, Sam. I am very well, thank you. And how are you?
Yeah, excellent. As you can see, new podcast setting for
Well, I
me.
was going to say that. Well, first of all, welcome back to the UK. For our
Thank you.
regular listeners, you might want to know that Sam has been based for all the shows the last couple of years in Mozambique.
That's it. But yes, back in the UK at the moment. And for those on video, you can see in a new place. For those on sound, you'll just have to take our word for it.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So, yeah, welcome back, Sam. It's nice to have you here. So, it's me talking today, and I am going to be talking about a concept called that I heard, and I thought, oh, this would be great to talk about in photography, from farm to fork. Have you heard of that saying?
I'm very aware of the farm to fork concept. I am very intrigued at how you're going to apply this to photography,
Yes.
Marcus.
Yeah, well, it's about my process, how I get from A to B with my clients. From the initial call to how I deliver the files to them. But I'm just taking the bits that I think are a little bit more maybe unique to me instead of going through the whole process.
Okay, excellent. And then are we going to really push this analogy with talking about furrowing fields and adding fertilizer?
Do you know what, Sam? I could have done that, and we spent ages even thinking, oh, from studio to what other S word can I have? Then I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. It's going to take me ages to work out this. So no, we'll just leave the analogy there. From farm to fork, it's all about process. So the first thing I want to do when with my clients is get them onto a Zoom call. As opposed to having an email sequence or even a telephone call. My first preference is get them on a Zoom call. And the reason for that is because I'm a visual person. I like to see how they look, the environment where they're in, their body language, all those kind of things really help me come up with ideas for the shoot and to read them a little bit better.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, and obviously, I'm looking for clues about whether the phone call is going well, but we've talked about it before on the podcast about listening and how important it is to
Yeah.
listen.
But
And
you're
I've
also saying visuals, almost visual listening as well, seeing their responses, seeing. Are you also kind of looking for ideas in terms of the way they look, maybe the way they're dressing, things that you can pick up on for the photo shoot too?
Exactly, Sam. That's exactly what I'm doing. So there's a whole lot of information going on there that is really, really valuable. And yeah, and also it helps me when I'm looking at someone. It helps me listen to them. Instead of trying to interrupt them on a phone call, it helps me listen, which is
Yeah, yeah.
so important. Um, what I have to be careful of when I'm doing these first initial setups, and I think that I'm very guilty of, is getting a bit carried away and starting thinking of ideas and processes that I'm going to do with them. So yeah, I try and just not say too much, even though I might be thinking it. I try not say it.
So are you
Oh,
talking about here at a sales call or at a
yes.
call once you've made the sale and it's the kind of first planning call?
This is the sales call,
Okay,
Sam. So
right,
you can
yeah,
see why. I don't want to get too involved in it. I don't want to
yeah.
waste my time coming up with ideas and talking it through with them.
But
It's more
also, you want to presumably get them to think about do I want to work with you or not? Yes, no, rather than them think about 40,000 questions, which you've come up with all sorts of ideas when actually you want them to focus on one, don't you? Which is, do you want me as your photographer?
exactly, Sam. That's exactly right. I know some people might start off their process with sending out a document where they got to fill it in and to find out more about the business. I've tried
No.
that in the past, but people didn't want to do it, Sam. They just
No,
didn't want
that's.
to
I
sit
mean,
there.
when we build websites for people, loads of people always say, "Oh, well, I want this information on my form, or that information, and I want 14 fields." And we go, "No, well, I mean, we can if you really want, but nobody's going to fill it in. The best form on your website and anything is name and either phone call or email, phone number or email. That's it, because people can't be bothered. If they have a call with you, that's quite different because they're just sitting and chatting, but having to go through
Yeah.
and then what are their circumstances don't quite fit with the form, do they? I know it's just like, it's a painful process, isn't it? People don't want to do it.
Well, exactly, Sam. You used the word there that was just coming into my head. I have to avoid at all times making it a painful process.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what, Sam? There's a guy outside my window with Canon EOS 5 Mark IV taking some photos. I think my neighbour's got his house for sale. That is so funny. He's looking at me, and doing a podcast about photography. How weird is
You
that?
have to invite him in.
I just invite him as a guest. Maybe we might get an extra show out of this one. So there we are. My first port of call is get them on a Zoom call for the reasons I mentioned, and I find it really helpful. There's different ways. I mean, you can set this up, no doubt. I've always used on Zoom. You get a little link. I think, or is it mine? No, I set it up such a long time ago. I can't remember how I did it. I think it's with Activity. I've got a little link that they can just go to my calendar.
Yeah, all sorts of
And it
options.
puts
You mean
them
where
there.
people can choose a calendar date and they book themselves
Yeah.
in? You mean? Yeah, no,
Yes, exactly.
loads of options for those with Calendly or Acuity or Google or whatever else. Loads of options.
Yeah, I set it up just a long time ago. I can't even remember how I did it, but it just works seamlessly, and all those going backwards and forwards to arrange dates and whatever has just gone out the window.
Yeah.
I
So
would
the
say,
only one thing I'd note there, Marcus, because I
yes,
used to always give the link to people, but sometimes
yes.
I find they can't bother. So I do find for some people they actually prefer the question. So you're right. I use the link for most people. It's the odd person, if they're not doing, I go, oh, what about meeting on Friday? And that just sometimes pushes through for that odd extra person.
You've got it, yeah, and that's just part of your experience, isn't it? And
That's
reading
it.
people. I mean, I have got a little note here to add that with marketing, this is what I use with one-to-one clients mainly. With marketing companies, it's quite difficult to get them on a Zoom call. They really want to
Yeah.
do it by email. They've got a brief already. Just
Yeah,
here's the
that's
brief.
it. It's different, isn't it? It's a very
Yeah,
different relationship and setup. They know what they want exactly, don't they? Which
yeah,
clients think they do, but actually they need part of what they're paying for is your expertise in what they want in some ways.
exactly. So then we move on to the second touch point, Sam, and it is another video call.
Okay.
This is after I've secured the job, and
Yeah.
maybe if necessary, a deposit is being paid, so we know it's going to go ahead. And on this second touch point, it's starting to build in that creative process. And now this is time to start riffing and getting carried away with ideas.
Cool. Can I just ask one quick question, Marcus? Do you normally, just
Yes.
very quickly, do you normally go ahead, kind of go for the deposit ahead with most clients?
I very rarely ask for a deposit these days, Sam. I just
Okay.
mention that because I know some photographers do. It's a
Okay. And you just
contagious
do everything at
voice.
the end?
I do, Sam. I do.
Okay.
I've got a lot of recurring customers. I've
It's
never
very
really
different
let you
then,
down.
isn't it, with recurring customers? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, never let down.
Just wondered.
But on this second touch point, on the second video call, is when I'll start going, as I say, into the creative process. And I call it, and I say to my clients, oh, we're going to discuss your wardrobe and we can discuss ideas. So this is where Zoom really comes in. The client can
Yeah.
hold up clothes in front of the camera, or they can even wear them. They can go around their
Oh,
room and say,
perfect.
we're going to do some shoots here and so on and so forth. And that is a really, really enjoyable process. We can start nailing things down
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Uh,
Do you ask
uh,
them to do that on their phone then, just so that it's easier to move around?
Actually, do you know what? I don't, Sam, but that's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. Again, with when I'm dealing with marketing departments or a bigger companies, that second touch point is more going to be a location visit,
Okay.
a
Yeah.
site visit. So I'm going to go in site and spend half an hour with them, going through the exact details, get it all nailed down, the different rooms, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And that's really just so I know what equipment to take on the shoot. I can start looking at the light and thinking, do I need my full kit here? Can I use a bit of ambient light? Blah, blah, blah. That's really the reason behind
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Okay. So let's move on to the third part, which is on the shoot. Now, we talked a lot on the various episodes about shooting and communication, but what I will talk about here is that I have a tendency to overshoot.
So do you
Um,
mean overshoot? Do you mean in terms of numbers of images?
Yes. Now this is the difference. I mean, not overshoot by doing loads and loads of the same thing, but I do have come up with ideas really quickly, and I
Okay.
tend to move around a bit and have different locations, different ideas, different outfits, and make really pile it in there. So it's quite intense, but I don't overshoot as like just doing one setup and going on. I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think I'm always thinking I've got to edit these photos. I've got to spend time
Yeah.
editing. So
Yeah.
I really try and get things looking good in the camera as much as I can. And that's where tethering really, really comes into play, because all of a sudden you're looking at the file on a large screen, a laptop or whatever it might be, and you can really nail it down there.
And is that a bit of a faff though if you're doing what you're saying and moving a lot, or do
It,
you?
Look, it is a faff, but and I
It's
don't
work.
do it all the time.
Yeah,
Sometimes I might be outside and think, oh, quickly, and I know how it's going to look anyhow.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I might be in a dark room with flash, and then tethering is quite really handy. So it does depend, but certainly I like to come up with lots of ideas. Uh,
Okay.
for myself more than anything, Sam. That's what I enjoy doing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
people might say I'm giving too much for the client, but there you go. When I do come down to editing, I can edit very quickly. I really limit the time I set myself doing it. I'll do it like later in the day as opposed to first thing in the morning when I'm editing. So I really want to get it done.
Basically, you got bedtime limiting
Got
you, basically.
bedtime, exactly.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. I think that's really important. Is it's so
Yeah.
easy for photographers just to sink so much time into that, and there is a balance, obviously, isn't it? Because you want the photos right, but you've got a business to run too, and you've got to think about the cost and the time you're giving it things.
It really is, Sam. I certainly would not be editing on Photoshop doing because that is just one photograph at a time. You can't cut and paste the settings, so that is a bit of a no-no for me. Certainly on a a multi-shot shoot.
Okay.
Uh, but what I do is as soon as I've ingested images into my computer, I'll just pick out the ones that I'm going to work on. So I don't
Yeah.
even think, oh, I look at that one, I look at this one, I just go through, pick out the best ones, maybe about, which might be about 25% of the shoot. And those are the ones I'm going to work on.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then cut and paste these settings so they go, you can do it fairly quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we're now in the field to fork. We're weeding out the little vegetables that aren't so good, and we're really working on those big ones and improving them.
That's right. You're getting rid of all the lumpy vegetables.
That's
Yes,
it. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Very good. I like that analogy. So, and the next thing I would be now we've done the shoot, and it's all going good. And what I do when I'm leaving the client, I just do one thing, and I always do this, and I over no, but let me get it right. Over promise and I said, oh no,
No,
under
other way,
no,
Marcus.
it's the other way. Thank you. No, I get it. I've even written it down. Under promise and over deliver.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yes. So obviously, what I do is I'll say, look, you're going to get these photos, the images back in about 4 days. And they go, oh, that's great. And then I always try and make sure I get them back to them within 2 days
yeah,
or even a day. Because that's from the last touch point, Sam, isn't it? When you're
yeah, yeah,
delivering the goods, and that's what they'll really remember.
yeah. No, that's really important.
So it's
Yeah,
a really easy thing to do that. Under promise and over deliver, but it's a really good way of just really ending the shoot on a high note.
yeah, and definitely better than the other way around.
Definitely better than the other way around. Okay, and then yeah, so I don't supply. Even though I've shot lots of photos, I really think you've got to be very stringent in your edit, and that's part of the skill of being a photographer, Sam, isn't it? It's been
Yeah,
knowing when you've got the right shot and knowing when you've not got the right shot, and being able to see the subtle difference between one and the other. That is comes from experience, comes from looking at work. I talk about it in my new book I'm writing in a moment, and all that kind of thing. It's really part of the skills of a photographer. So don't send to your client images that are similar because they'll just
right.
get confused.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're better off picking the good one rather than giving them three that are give or take the same.
No, not so much give and take, Sam. Three that are similar. So
Yeah,
the hand might be in one hand, it might be up, and the other one it might be,
yeah, yeah,
down like I'm doing now. Pick the one that is the best. Don't let the client decide 'cause they can't. It's very hard to do that. They're going
yeah,
to be, and they'll be looking at other things. You want to make sure you get the ones that work the best. That's part of being a photographer. And then finally, and this is linked into delivery. It's what I use to supply the images, and I've always used this for the last 4 or 5 years. Is Pixie Set. Now there are other ones. Pixie Set is basically a gallery that you upload the images on, and it gets sent to the client. And
yeah, yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of other ones.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we're like, do they need get a link or they have to log in? But it's that type of thing where it's kind of there's a online gallery, but it's locked just for them.
Exactly. It's an online gallery. I do not watermark the images. Again, that's just my personal choice, but I don't watermark the images. I've never had any problems with knowing problems seeing my images stolen or being
Yeah,
used. so I don't watermark. And yeah, I make it. I don't even let them need a pin. You know, you can have a setting where they need a pin
Yeah,
to
yeah,
access their photos. I don't even bother with that, Sam. I just make it as painless as possible. I get a nice image on the cover, so when it opens up, they got a really nice image. I get the right type font that might suit the business, and I even have, you can change colorways with the settings on Pixie so I even try and do it to the brand of the image, just little things like that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then I leave them up there for a long time. I've got clients who still taking images, downloading them a year after
Oh
I've done
wow.
the
Oh,
event.
so
I
you leave
know.
them a long time.
I do, Sam, and I'll tell you why I do that is because every time they go to that Pixie they see my name, they see my brand,
Right.
and
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
thinking of me.
Yeah, so that's better in some ways than you giving them a stick and then them downloading them onto their Google Drive or whatever. Because the way you're doing it, they're constantly being reminded about you every time they do another LinkedIn post and they want another image. There's that little reminder.
Exactly, Sam.
That's
So
really
that's
good. That's a really good idea.
yeah, yeah. So all this whole process is making it as smooth as possible for the client.
Yeah,
It's making them as happy as possible and making it as easy as possible.
yeah, perfect.
There you
No,
go. That's my farm
that's
to
really
fork.
good. Excellent. Thank you, Marcus. Yeah, no, that's really clear. I think that's really good to see that whole process through all sorts of little useful insights there, and
Thank
for
you.
us to get our lovely fresh produce at the end of the day when we know where it came from.
Well, I'll think of a headline for our YouTube cover, appropriate one that would be had the farm to fork analogy. I'll think of something.
Excellent. Very good. Well, thank you, Marcus, and I'll see you next week.
See you next week, Sam. And again, welcome back. Welcome to the UK, back to the UK.
Thanks very much.